this recording as well. All right. If you just want to briefly introduce yourself now.
Sure. So my name is Daeki Lee. I'm here representing ICON as its head of ecosystem. And then I guess I can give a bit of background about myself. So I initially started off my career as a venture capitalist here in Silicon Valley at an early stage fund. I was looking at a lot of emerging technology spaces such as VR, AR, AI, and whatnot, and then was really getting into the crypto blockchain space towards the latter part of my career over there. So I was, looking into investing in a few of the companies at the time, and then was interacting with other companies in the space. And I happened to meet Min, who is one of the co-founders of Icon, and whom I've known from his previous startup days. And we're just chatting about what's happening in the blockchain ecosystem, and felt that there was a lot of need for ecosystem growth for a lot of these blockchain projects to recruited to Icon to lead its ecosystem growth. And as a result, I've built ICX Station, which is acting as an accelerator arm to build out a lot of projects for Icon ecosystem growth, and currently heading up its ecosystem at Icon. And now I've been with Icon for about 2 years.
Excellent. And I'm your host, Arthur, here for REIMAGINE 2020. And Daeki has done so much that he's prepared the presentation to talk about what Icon has done to build in the crypto and blockchain space. So go ahead.
All right. So I'll go ahead with the presentation. All right. So I'll try to not keep this too long, and I'll just try to go these through slides pretty quickly. Blockchain projects and the lessons we've learned so far as we try to grow the community and fuel the ecosystem growth. So for those of you who are not familiar, Icon is a decentralized network for communities specifically. This can be either both consumers and enterprises, and for a lot of them to execute smart contracts. So what does this mean? Our network focused on security through community governance, scalability through LFT to algorithm that our team has built, which is an improved version of PPFT, and also interoperability through blockchain transfer protocol, which is of our own unique technology as well. So going back a little bit into where Icon started, it launched in September 2017 with a global token sale across the globe. The foundation itself is based out of Switzerland, but its team members are based out of South Korea. So we obviously had a large interest from across the globe. And we feel that this was actually a strong seed that has led to the current community growth. Fast forward today, Icon is one of the largest public blockchain networks in the world today from this coin market cap. And ICX was one of the top performing cryptocurrency as of first quarter of 2020. And the reason why I'm highlighting some of these recent achievements is because, after achieving these, why started in ICX? Why are people getting really excited about our project? And a lot of this had to go back to our community. So our network became fully decentralized back in 2019. And basically at the time, the foundation gave the ownership of the network to its community members. And right now, there are about 22 main public representatives that are running the network. And in the governance, and ICX holders could vote, stake, and vote for a specific candidate that they think will add value back to the country ecosystem, and they were getting rewarded from the network directly. And that is the intentional design that we built into the network. And as you can see from this graph, actually, initially, when the staking and voting first started in September 1st, there was about 100 million staked or so. So we have about 500 million ICX circulating supply. But as you can see from the graph, right now there's about 250 million staked and voted into the governance network right now. And that just shows that almost half of circulating ICX supply has gone to participate in the governance of ICON ecosystem. And I think that just shows how much interest we've been getting from regular ICX holders to participate in the governance, which we think is a big part of contributing back to the ecosystem. And part of the reason why we think we see a lot of strong interest in staking and voting is because ICX offers one of the compelling real yields in the industry as well. But a lot of these interesting components has led ICON to become fourth largest DF ecosystem, as shown from this review report from Q1 of 2020. And from Blocktivity report as of May 5th, ICX was also 8th most utilized cryptocurrency by activity. And ICX is oftentimes recognized as one of the having one of the best communities by a lot of medias as well. So what does this all mean? Like, why do we think community has shown this much interest all of a sudden? So we'll kind of get into our main topics today around community. And I think a lot of this reels back into ICON's consensus mechanism. So we have a consensus mechanism called Delegated Proof of Contribution, which is basically a variant of Delegated Proof of Stake. But the difference here is that delegators not just get delegated and produce blocks and share their rewards back to their voters, but they actually have to contribute back to the ecosystem. And that's how ICX holders vote for these public representatives, because voters themselves are already getting the reward directly from the network. They have no monetary incentive to actually vote for a specific delegators who are sharing more rewards, for example. And I know this is a very common theme in a lot of other DPoS network, but because we focus a lot on this C of DPoC around contribution, a lot of ICX holders are looking for which delegates are actually contributing back to the ecosystem. And I'll get into more details of how that's actually being done today in the ICON ecosystem. So if you look at our representatives, we have about 123 candidates running for public representatives right now as of May 1st. And you can break it into 3 different categories. So top 22 main public representatives, they get to participate in the governance of the network, and they also get the reward as well. Those who are in top 100 but are out of top 20, top 22, get to earn the reward but don't get to participate in the governance. And those who are out of top 100 don't get to earn the reward and don't get to participate in the governance. And we have about 35 countries participating to be, these 123 candidates. And this was just like mind-blowing for us because, our blockchain network is relatively, in its early days. We became fully decentralized just September of 2019. And since then, it's been less than a year or so, but we've already seen such a large interest from a broader global audience, and we hope to see this number grow from here on. And it doesn't just stop from the lot to the ecosystem, since network decentralized. There's about 140 projects that are being contributed by these public representatives. A bulk of these are around development, but a lot of this is around also educating developers, educating people about what ICON network is, and trying to grow communities across different parts of the globe. And we're very excited about these projects. And part of this, kind of thinking back to our consensus mechanism, we believe that this is happening because candidates are incentivized to make contribution back to the ecosystem, because that's how they will get more votes from ICX holders, and that's how they get more rewards. So this ecosystem map is something I've drafted a few weeks ago, and I was drafting ecosystem map to just understand where we are, to understand, what are some of the missing pieces, what are some of the things that are being built. And I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised as I was building out this ecosystem map, because a lot of these ICON specific projects were built, since late last year. So really, a lot of these projects were built within a year or so, and we're already seeing a lot of these small pieces of within ecosystem that's necessary built by community members. And I think that with this growth rate, we'll see a lot more projects being built on Icon ecosystem going forward. And just to highlight a few, for example, there is a team called Icon Nation, who is public representative, who has built a DEX for Icon Network. It's called Icon Swap. We also have a team of public representatives teamed up together to build a DeFi product, which is a better version of MakerDAO on Icon. We also have My Icon Wallet, which was built by another public representative called Reliant Node. And we also have devblockchain.tech, which is built by Sharp and another public representative to help people really understand how to build smart contracts on Icon. And we also have a lot of other enterprise use cases as well, such as Booth, which is a certificate verification service system, and also VisitMe, which is a visitor management system, which all utilize blockchain in the backend as well. And we are very excited about this ecosystem with good current growth. But a lot of these public representatives' contribution don't stop there. Actually, they contribute back by participating actively in the governance system as well. So as I mentioned earlier, Icon Network basically gave its full ownership to its community members back in September 2019. And since then, there have been about 5 network proposals, and all of them have been submitted and approved by 22 main public representatives who participate in the governance since then. Public representatives also have a right to influence the monetary policy within Icon ecosystem. And this directly relates to how much block rewards that public representatives and regular ICX holders get. And this is determined by a factor called IREP. And as you can see from this chart over here, image over here, every single public representative has a right to influence this number for this factor called IREP. And this, we obviously give guidelines of how much to not go up or down too drastically on each day. But it's interesting to see a lot of these public representatives also participate in the monetary policy of the Icon ecosystem as well. And we also have a lot of exciting things coming up soon. So contribution proposal system is something that we're very excited about, and that will be coming in Q3 of 2020. And think of this as very similar to a DAO fund that happened to ETH a few years ago, which unfortunately didn't happen because of a hack, but it's very similar where part of the block rewards are going into contribution proposal fund, and the use of the fund will be determined by 22 main public representatives. So this is really just Icon Network acting as a DAO by 22 main public representatives, but also its fund being the decision-making process of the fund determined by these 22 main public representatives as well. And we know that this is kind of this need to be a progress to be made. So right now, how it's being done is through Icon Foundation's block rewards. A lot of it is going back to the ecosystem through a grant. And we believe that this grant system will eventually progress to contribution proposal system, which is not only determined by the foundation, but by 22 main public representatives. Oh, and then we also have, it has added a lot of value back to the ecosystem as well. There are about more than 10 projects that have received grants so far in 2020. And these include wallets such as Atomic Wallet and Formatic, DM aggregators such as DApp.com or DApp Review, community-led projects such as My Icon Wallet, devblockchain.tech, or even hackathons like Icon Hyperconnect. And we're very excited. I think the foundation is very excited to fund a lot more exciting community-led projects going forward as well. And we expect the CPS to really give a lot of power back to community members on which projects to select to contribute back to the ecosystem. And we're very excited for it. And these are just some of the highlights. And these are very high quality projects, in my opinion. And obviously, I'm not just trying to pick and choose, but I think these are just some of the highlights from the contribution proposals. But My Icon wallet, for example, we think will be a great wallet. We've built the wallet from the foundation itself, but we think actually this community-led wallet will be even a better wallet than the one that the foundation has built. And we're very excited about this DeFi project called Balance Network, which is hopes to be a better version of MakerDAO as well. So obviously, public representatives have a lot of influence on the Icon network. So I think it makes sense that it should be also emphasized on which candidates to vote for within Icon ecosystem. And thankfully, I think a lot of community members think this is a very important process. And there's this kind of narrative in the Icon ecosystem that you should do your own research on which candidates to vote for to make sure that they're adding their contribution back to the Icon ecosystem. So we kind of make a analogy to like kind of voting for your own senator or public representatives, where you should do your own research on whether their long-term vision is aligned with what you try to, or what you'd like to see from the ecosystem. So typically people do research future plans, what their contributions have been so far around community outreach, development, and whether their node is secure and whatnot. And it's just not candidates, it's not just ICX holders that are doing research. Candidates are also trying actively to update community members about what they're up to. So we have this website called iconpeerups.com where projects can, where candidates can publish what project that they've worked on, and community members can participate in voting up or down of these specific projects based on whether they think they're adding value to the Icon ecosystem. And some of these candidates are further, one step furthermore, by publishing transparency reports. So this is all voluntary. Like I don't think anyone really forced anyone to publish transparency reports, and we were very pleasantly surprised. But as you can see from this image, plenty of candidates have already started publishing transparency reports. And a lot of these transparency reports are around how much block rewards that they've earned through block production and how much of that have been used to go back to, contribute back to the ecosystem. And this is kind of work that you'd expect maybe from a protocol. I know some protocols are doing transparency reports to make it public to their investors, but I don't think we've seen too many of these happening with the delegated levels. And we are very excited about these voluntary action by public representatives to communicate with the community members. So how many members really care about Icon governance these days? So we're tracking this smart contract that basically deals with all Icon governance. And there's about 1,000 plus users a day interacting with Icon governance smart contract. And we hope to increase this number by making the user experience as seamless as possible in terms of doing research on which candidate to vote for, and also a candidate to disseminate their own information back to community members. And I just wanted to also highlight another kind of interesting trend I've seen. So a lot of the delegators were either individuals or teams that kind of decided to run the public representative from a get-go, but we've started seeing some community-based candidates as well. So IconBet is one of popular DFs on Icon ecosystem. And basically, IconBet players decided to team up together to build a candidate so that they can actually add value back to IconBet, which will ultimately add value back to the Icon ecosystem. I mean, we thought this was actually a very interesting trend that we actually decided to push quite hard, because Icon itself, as I mentioned earlier, is trying to be a DAO in itself by giving control to its community members. But also our goal is to create as many of these mini communities within Icon network as possible. And we feel that this is a great example of how a mini community was created by having a common goal of doing something that's best for IconBet, which will ultimately benefit Icon ecosystem as well. So if you see what their contribution has been so far, they've created like great marketing materials, as you can see from the images over here. They're also creating games on top of the platform as a community member, and they're also doing translation on the for the platform as well. And it's very interesting to see a lot of these mini communities happening, and then we're really trying hard to push as many of these mini communities to happen on Icon network as well. And to communicate more actively with other candidates, Icon Foundation is also hosting monthly governance call. So as you can see from here, we're actually very excited to see that because our candidates are all across the world, as you can see from this tweet, some people were even like waking up at 3 a.m. to participate in this governance call. And we're just very excited about the fact that people care enough about the icon ecosystem to join these calls at 3 a.m. And we hope to continue this progress going forward as well. So, our community doesn't just stop there. A lot of what I just talked about was around blockchain and crypto community, but we also have enterprise community. So we have a technology partner company called Icon Loop, which basically built the core engine of Icon. And they're leading this initiative called MyID. So decentralized ID is a big theme in South Korea right now. And MyID is a big consortium that comprises of more than 50 or 60 big enterprises in South Korea. And our ultimate goal is to really connect these MyID consortium to public chains so that a lot of enterprise applications can be built on Icon Network. And that can be basically a funnel for a lot of MyID consortium enterprise to use these enterprise applications. As you can see, MyID comprised of various institutions such as financial institutions, public universities, fintech companies, startups, industrial companies, as well as IT companies. And we actually think this number will just grow from here. And as I mentioned earlier, we already have few enterprise applications such as Proof or Visit.me, which are actually already getting traction in South Korea from enterprise. And as I mentioned, Proof is a certificate verification platform, and Visit.me is a visitor management platform. And both of them are getting crazy interest from a lot of enterprise in South Korea, especially given the recent COVID-19 situation. So what is our ultimate goal? Our ultimate goal is to really connect all these different communities, connect a lot of these mini communities within Icon Network, connect a lot of these enterprise communities to Icon Network, and then ultimately to also connect other public chain networks to Icon so that we can have this big Icon Republic where it is like basically a network of networks communicating with each other. And I mean, we're slowly making a progress, but we have no doubt that this is the future that we'll live in, and we're trying very hard to make this happen. And that's it.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, definitely incredibly informative, and I mean, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. I guess my question, what I'd sort of be interested to know is like, given, yeah, like, as you said that, as you displayed that you've had a lot of success with building out the community and how it's kind of turned into this sort of like a virtuous cycle, right? Where and what would you say is the sort of like what has been like to some, and I'm sure some of these things that you did cover, but like what is to sum up, like, what has been the kind of like the secret sauce to it? So you mentioned that the governance system is something that kind of essentially, because blockchain is all about incentives, right? So like, that the incentive that you've built the incentives system correctly, sort of correctly, there was the grant system, right? What have your other sort of learning points been, or what have you seen that has kind of like yielded the most success?
So I think there are a few different elements to there. So I think definitely governance system around delegated proof of contribution, I think, was a big thing, because a lot of people really believe in that theme, and those that believe in the theme actually came to Icon Network. So I think it's important to kind of set that vision of what do you think the network should be like, and bring in the community members that believe in that vision. I think that kind of creates the virtual cycle. Other thing, like more of tangible, I think, things we did was that I think communication is very important. And I know we have some of the team members who are very active in Telegram, for example. I'm really trying to communicate with community members and ask, answer quite any question that they may have. And I know some projects really think of this as kind of waste of time. And to be honest, I kind of thought I was questioning whether it was worth some of our team members' time, because they can be doing a lot of other great things as well. But I think looking back, it turns out, I think building, like answering those questions and building kind of rapport around what Icon is trying to build, and I think has really worked out well. And the fact that nowadays, I think a lot of our own community members actually answering a lot of these questions back to some of these newcomers to the ecosystem, I think we kind of created this virtual cycle by bringing people who believe in the system and already know enough about the system to actually relay that information back to these newcomers as well.
Interesting. And so, so you mentioned that you've kind of had this sort of balancing act of is it worth sort of your team members focusing on like on the community and so on. How big is the if it's no secret, how big is the sort of is the team focusing on the community at Icon?
So I would say there are actually quite a few. I think no one's like really full time in terms of communicating with members, but I think there are at least like a handful, about like 4 to 5 people, always looking out on Telegram, trying to answer any questions people may have. I think 2 to 3 from the US and then 2 to 3 from Korea, so that we kind of cover across different time zones as well. But I think that has been working out great. And I also want to give a lot of credits back to community members, such as like even moderators in Telegram who are doing it voluntarily, and a lot of these public representatives who are just like answering a lot of questions that people may have. And I have to say, like, it's really great to see, because like initially it was a lot of our own team members, I think, responding. But nowadays, I think, unless it's very specific, I think a lot of it is just like automatically answered from the community itself.
The baby's starting to walk.
Yep. And no, we like where this is going.
Well, I think with the peer reps, as I mentioned, that if the incentives are right, then it kind of turns into this. It should ideally turn into this virtuous cycle. But so what would be the sort of the biggest what are the biggest things we can expect from Icon this year?
So as I mentioned, I think CPS is something that we're very excited about. I know Eve tried to kind of do that several years ago with the DAO fund. So hopefully we can kind of try to achieve something similar later this year. So that's something we're excited about. We also have quite a bit of exciting things, such as I think interoperability stuff happening as well. Can't share too much details because I think we're trying to kind of narrow down the specific timeline and whatnot. But a lot of these things that we've promised to the community, I think we'll start to see some early signs of these happening this year, I believe. Okay, got it. And if you were, I know we're running out of time here, but so if to all the to all the students watching and thinking about a career in blockchain, to the sort of the CS majors, the lawyers, business school, and so on, what would your advice to them be? Sort of when looking for a career in blockchain. So I think blockchain is a very interesting career, and I actually tell this to a lot of my friends, so I'll just make it very casual, because a lot of my engineer friends used to ask me this question, especially 2 years ago when the blockchain was very hot. And I think, unfortunately, it is correlated with the Bitcoin price somewhat, so we'll see how big it does for next few years. But in general, I think blockchain has a huge potential. It is in, I would say, very, very early days. I mean, that's something I didn't know until I actually came into the blockchain industry. Like, even a lot of these different protocols, I thought like they were almost close to perfect or nowhere near perfect, and all were just taking baby steps. And I think that's going to continue for a while. So that means that it's going to be hard to really maybe build something that you really want, because there's a lot of infrastructure that's not already there. But also at the same time, because a lot of those things are not built, there can be a lot of great opportunities there. So I think there is kind of a great risk and great reward that comes with entering the blockchain industry. But if you truly have a passion, I think that's something worth exploring.
Got it. And what would the opportunities within Icon be, or what does Icon need help with the most?
So we're actually interacting with a lot of university students right now, both in the US and in Korea. A lot of our interactions are around trying to just get them to understand what Icon Network is and how it's unique, but also mostly around trying to encourage them to do development activities on Icon Network. And I think this is probably the same for a lot of other protocols as well. They're actively trying to promote Icon Network to a lot of different developer groups. And actually, it's interesting, some developer groups started reaching out to us after we got introduced to some groups. So we'll see how this trend continues. But we're actively giving out grants to a lot of teams that are interested in building something interesting or useful to the Icon Network. We also have a big hackathon that's coming up this summer, hosted by one of the actually public representatives, which is I think around like $20,000 prize pool, which is also going to focus on college students quite a bit as well. So I think there's a lot of interesting opportunities where you can just try to build things almost like a hackathon and see if it sticks. And if it works, you have an opportunity to receive grants, also win in this like hackathon competition as well.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Daeki, and I guess we all look forward to Icon in 2020 and reimagining 2020 together.
Yep, sounds good. Looking forward to it.
All right, awesome. Thank you. I think that went well.
All right, cool.
Yeah, so we'll I guess either Marcus or
in case.
Sorry?
I think it's still recording, by the way.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is all going to be edited in the end, anyways. I usually stop it with the call, but so.